Hello students, myself Dr. Cherian Thomas, Faculty, Department of Commerce PG from Kristu Jayanti College, Autonomous, Bengaluru. Today's class we will be talking about Presidency banks and its role. Now when you hear the word called as Presidency, what comes to your mind? I'll give you a few seconds. Can you think? To add on, I'll give you a clue as well. So if you have spoken to your grandparents, you would come across these words. They would speak about something related with presidency. Okay, the time given is over. Presidency, if you would have spoken to your grandparents or anybody who have lived pre-independence era, they would have told you that there were three main presidencies in India: the Madras Presidency, the Bombay Presidency, and the Calcutta Presidency. So you might be confused as to why I am talking about presidencies now. Presidencies and presidency banks have got a close connection. Now, I told you about these three presidencies. Can you find anything common between Bengal, Calcutta, and Bombay? I'll give you a few seconds. So the clue here is, it is connected with a mode of transportation. If your answer was seaport or shipping, then it is correct. So all these areas, whether it is Bengal, whether it is Bombay, or whether it is Madras, had seaports and shipping trade was happening. So it was, you can imagine, a thriving place wherein buying and selling happens, wherein there is market and there is need for money. And that's how presidency banks came into being. Now the first presidency bank was set up in Bengal. So we call that, in the initial years of independence, we call Bengal as highly industrialized because of the trade which used to happen before independence. That was in the year 1806. The Bank of Bengal was established. In the year 1840, the Bank of Bombay was established. Bombay, as you know, is basically famous for cotton. And finally, Bank of Madras, especially famous for its Salem steel and spices. So anyway, with regarding to the places, with regarding to the commodity, there was a need for banks, and then these banks basically sprouted up in the 19th century. Now, to tell you more about these banks, what are the features that you could say? One was the charter. So these banks were started using charters. Now what is a charter? A charter is a declaration given by the monarchs. When I say the word called as monarchs, we are speaking about kings and queens. So it was declared by the kings and queens under the British East India Company. Now mind you, British East India Company was registered back in UK or Britain, and the king and queen gave an initial declaration of starting these banks. So they are the people who are credited to be founders of these banks. Now an immediate question might come to your mind, right? Whether these banks are alive today or not. I won't answer now. We'll keep it for a later session. Now, most of the shareholders of these banks, you got to know who is the founder. Now, let's talk about the shareholders. They were Europeans. So, this is the starting of the Swadeshi movement or Swaraj movement. People finally started to feel that shareholders need to be Indians as well. In India, these presidency banks had Europeans as shareholders and not Indians. So this is why later on we come to see that many Indian banks were started with Indian shareholders. And also the rate of interest was comparatively less when compared with other private banks. So this the logic might be to fund or to expand the trade. The interest rates were kept very low, and its operations were supposed to be safe and profitable. Because there was thriving business, there was huge demand for spices, for steel, for other things for which India is, known as its, as it has got natural resources. So in this case, presidency banks were there to make profit out of it. So indirectly, the British East India Company were making profits using the medium such as presidency banks. And it also functioned independently. Though it had the charter of the king and queen, their independence was given in its function. And later on, now remember the question that I had asked before, are presidency banks alive today? And the answer is yes, not in the name of presidency bank, but later in 1921, we see that all these three, that is Presidency Bank of Bombay, Calcutta and Bengal, were merged and they became the Imperial Bank of India. Now, Imperial Bank of India was later subdivided into the SBI and today's RBI. So now you know the genealogy of RBI, how RBI started. So the initial origin of RBI was basically the presidency banks. Now, what are the functions that this presidency banks used to do? One is to issue currency notes. So it was not known that small banks could not basically issue currency notes, but here it is, presidency banks started issuing currency notes from 1823 till 1861. So it had the power to issue currency, and treasury bill discounting was happening, right? So T-bills, treasury bills. So whenever trade happens, you can't pay the money, you resort to these treasury bills. So discounting of T-bills was happening. So whenever traders wanted money very badly, they used to approach Presidency Bank, who used to take all the treasury bills, pay the money at a discount. So it's called as discounting treasury bills. And finally, it acted as a creation of reserve treasuries. Now, what are treasuries? You might have heard government employees tell about chest, treasury, all those words. It used to act as the provider of money on behalf of the government. Now, which government was ruling back then in the pre-independent times? It was the British East India Company and the monarchy. So for this, there was a need for treasury, and presidency banks acted. So the uniqueness of presidency bank lies in, having to issue currency notes, and also in creation of reserve treasuries, which was very unique at that time. So the logic is that there never used to be a central bank in the pre-independence era, and it was rather presidency banks. So I hope you got a gist or connection of what are presidency banks, what are the features of presidency banks, what are the functions of presidency banks, and how it is connected today with the modern RBI. With this, I'm winding up. Thank you. Take care.